I stood in the back hallway of my sister's engagement party, listening to her laugh about how peaceful it would have been if I'd crashed on the drive over. 9 hours through a blizzard, cake in my lap, heart in my throat, only to find I wasn't even on the guest list. I'm Emily, and that night taught me what it feels like to be erased by your own family. But what they didn't know was I had receipts, literal ones. Have you ever been pushed so far by silence that you had no choice but to speak up? I'd love to hear. What would you have done if you were me? I didn't realize how hard the snow was coming down until the wipers started skipping, smearing the windshield more than clearing it. I leaned forward, squinting past the glass, both hands tight on the wheel. On the passenger seat, buckled in like a fragile passenger, sat a white bakery box tied with a gold ribbon. The scent of lemon and honey frosting drifted faintly through the car, though I wasn't sure if it was real or just something my memory added in. Samantha always said big gestures were overrated, but she used to smile when I made them. When we were kids, I'd spend hours gluing glitter to birthday cards just to get that grin out of her. It never felt like too much back then. That morning, I'd left Boston before the sun came up, sliding carefully over slushy streets, trying not to spill my coffee as I made the first turn out of the parking garage. I had dressed in layers, thick socks under my boots, a wool coat buttoned to my neck. I didn't pack a suitcase, just the cake, the important part, the gesture. Somewhere around Worcester, the snow started to thicken. By the time I reached a rest stop outside Albany, my shoulders were stiff from the drive. I parked, grabbed my heels from the back seat, and headed into the restroom. The heater inside blasted warm air that smelled like disinfectant and something too sweet. I balanced one foot at a time as I changed out of my boots, then stood in front of the mirror. My cheeks were red, my eyes tired. I looked like someone who'd been trying too hard for too long. Still, I whispered to my reflection, "She's your sister. This matters." When I pulled into the long driveway of the Caldwell estate, my tires crunched softly over packed snow. Strings of golden lights wrapped around the black iron gates, casting a soft glow over the entrance. I turned off the engine and sat for a moment. My coat creaked as I reached for the cake. As I stepped out, snowflakes clung to my lashes. I tilted the bakery box carefully against my chest, one hand underneath for support. The air smelled of pine and chimney smoke. My heels sank slightly into the salted walkway. The valet was young, probably college-aged. He reached for my keys but paused, looking me over. "Are you with catering?" I paused, just a second too long. "No," I said. "I'm here for the party." My voice came out steadier than I felt. He blinked twice, nodded, and took the keys. Inside, the heat hit me like a soft slap. The smell of vanilla candles mixed with the sweetness of desserts and something faintly floral. Classical music drifted from a string quartet in the corner, delicate but somehow forgettable. I clutched the box tightly, unsure where to go. No one looked up. I mean, they looked, but not in a way that meant anything, just flickers of recognition that didn't stick. I caught a few faces from childhood photos, grown up and glossier now. Not one of them smiled. The grand hall shimmered in soft gold and ivory, chandeliers, marble floors, blush-colored linens. I took it all in with a slow, stunned breath. Then I saw her, Samantha. She was standing near the floral archway, laughing with a small group. Her dress was pale blush, hair pinned into elegant curls. She looked like something out of a bridal magazine. For a moment, I let myself believe that she would turn, light up, and pull me into the fold. But she did turn, and her smile faded the second our eyes met. The cake sat untouched at the edge of the dessert table, tucked neatly between a tower of eclairs and a mirrored tray of pink macarons. Someone had thoughtfully arranged the napkins nearby in perfect fan folds. I placed the box down slowly, smoothing the ribbon one last time. No one asked me what it was. No one even noticed I'd brought it. I stood there a moment, waiting, though I wasn't sure for what. A greeting? A glance? Some acknowledgement that I existed outside the bakery box. Classical violin music drifted from the far corner of the ballroom, elegant and harmless. The chandeliers above sparkled like a scene from a winter wedding catalog. Polished floors gleamed, reflecting blush linens and champagne flutes. People floated past me, their heels clicking softly, their conversation stitched with laughter and inside jokes I wasn't part of. I made my way toward the seating chart, hoping, naively, that maybe someone had just forgotten to mention my spot. The printed cards were calligraphed in gold ink, each name carefully placed around delicate floral arrangements. I scanned the main table. Nothing. The bridesmaids section. Still nothing. I checked the back, the edges, the table near the sound booth. At the far corner, a waiter intercepted me. He was smiling too wide, like someone trained to deflect gently. "Oh, I'm sorry," he said, gesturing to a single empty chair. "That one's reserved for the DJ's assistant." "Of course," I said, though I wasn't sure what I was apologizing for. I turned to look for Samantha. She stood near the arch again, this time locked in conversation with someone I didn't recognize. She looked over briefly, her eyes brushing past mine. No wave, no nod, no explanation. Just a soft turn of her shoulder, subtle, practiced, polite. And then she vanished into the crowd. I walked slowly, tracing the edges of the ballroom. A floral wall stood near the coat room, framed with flickering candles and gift boxes lined neatly on a silver tray. 10 of them, maybe more, all wrapped in ivory paper with satin blush bows, each tag handwritten in looping cursive. Camille, Rachel, Megan, Tasha, even her college roommate who once called me intense at a Christmas party after too much rosé. Not mine, not even a blank tag. I stared at the tray longer than I should have, then moved toward a bench by the window. The seat was cold and I welcomed it. My phone buzzed in my coat pocket. Group text, bridal party. Maybe someone had added me by mistake. Maybe a tiny glitch in the universe had included me this once. I scrolled past hair appointments and floral confirmations, then I saw it. A message from Samantha, timestamped that morning. "She doesn't fit the look. Say the list was full." Just one line, no emoji, no apology, like it was a line from a checklist. Send invites, confirm venue, exclude your sister. My chest tightened, slow and deep. There's a kind of quiet that doesn't need sound to hurt, like walking into a room and realizing it's been arranged without you. I read the message again and again. It didn't soften with repetition. It stayed sharp. People passed behind me, the rustle of silk and muffled heels. The room went on without pause, and I sat frozen, holding my phone like it might explain itself. Then, from somewhere near the ballroom, I heard it. Laughter. Not just laughter. Familiar laughter. My body leaned forward before I knew what I was doing. I followed the sound, slow at first, then with more certainty. Something about it pulled me. It was the kind of laugh you hear through a wall and instinctively know they're talking about you. I didn't mean to end up in the back hallway. I just kept walking until the laughter thinned and the warmth of the chandeliers gave way to the hum of kitchen fans. The tile floor felt colder here, and the lighting buzzed softly overhead, casting a bluish tint that made everything look a little too sterile. I stopped next to a row of catering carts. Silver platters rested beneath warmers, untouched. Somewhere nearby, someone was stacking dishes, the quiet clink of porcelain echoing like distant raindrops. I wasn't hiding. Not exactly. I just needed a moment where no one was looking through me like I was part of the furniture. I leaned against the wall and closed my eyes, feeling the cool plaster through the wool of my coat. My arms were still curled protectively around my purse, even though I had nothing in it but tissues and lip balm. I told myself to breathe, to shake it off, but my stomach was tight and the back of my throat burned. That's when I heard it. "She actually came?" a voice said, sharp and amused. It was Megan. "Can you believe it?" another voice added. That one I knew even better. Samantha's. 9 hours in a blizzard. For what? A pity cupcake? Someone snorted. What if she had crashed? Then a pause, laughter, and Samantha again, lower this time. Honestly, the silence would have been a bonus. The words landed like ice water, not screamed, not dramatic, just offered casually, like discussing centerpieces or seating charts. I didn't move, didn't breathe. My body tensed so hard my toes curled inside my shoes. I pressed my back to the wall, as if flattening myself could make me disappear from the moment. People say betrayal is loud. They imagine slamming doors or screaming matches. But in real life, betrayal whispers. It laughs softly in another room and doesn't realize you're still within earshot. My fists clenched at my sides, not in rage, but to stop the trembling. I didn't want them to hear me, didn't want to give them that satisfaction. Eventually, their voices drifted away, swallowed by the rustle of aprons and the soft closing of swinging kitchen doors. I slid quietly down the hallway, past racks of untouched hors d'oeuvres, my heels clicking softly with each step. I found a restroom tucked just beyond a corner and stepped inside. It was empty, dimly lit, smelled like lavender soap and bleach. I locked myself into a stall, lowered the lid of the toilet, and sat down fully clothed, my coat still buttoned, my hands folded in my lap. And then the tears came, not all at once, just slow, steady, like a faucet that had been dripping for months before anyone noticed. My breath hitched once, then again, but I didn't sob. I didn't make a sound. I just sat there while everything I'd been holding, hope, dignity, memory, slipped quietly down my cheeks. It wasn't the jokes, not really. It was the wish underneath them. The wish that I hadn't shown up, that I hadn't made it, that I hadn't existed at all. At some point, I pulled out my phone. My thumb hovered over the photo app, but I didn't open it. Instead, I went into my folders and tapped New. I typed one word, truth, and saved. Back home in Boston, the snow still drifted gently outside my window. It no longer looked dangerous, just quiet, like the kind that makes the whole street feel like it's holding its breath. Inside, my apartment was dim except for the warm glow from my laptop screen. The bakery box was gone, but my coat, draped over the chair, still smelled faintly of buttercream. I didn't cry anymore. I didn't shake. I just moved. I clicked open my photo folder and created a new album. I labeled it the same word I'd typed in the restroom stall, truth. Inside, I dropped 3 files, one photo of the cake still sitting untouched on the silver prep table at the party, one blurry selfie I'd taken outside the venue with the box in my arms and a forced smile on my face, and one screenshot of the group text I was never supposed to see. She doesn't fit the look. Say the list was full. That sentence alone had weight, not just because of what it meant, but because they'd assumed I'd never see it. I opened Instagram. My hands didn't shake as I selected the 3 images and arranged them into a carousel. I typed slowly, each word deliberate. Sometimes you show up for people who wouldn't shovel your name off a sidewalk. Some cakes go uneaten. Some truths go ignored. I posted it, then set a timer. 20 minutes, just enough for it to be seen. Then I turned off comments. I didn't want a conversation, I wanted a record. Next, I opened my email. Subject line, for the record. Recipients, Samantha, Mom, Aunt Valerie. I attached the same 3 files and hit send without writing a single word. Then I composed a second email, this time to the Public Relations Department of Hayes and Knox, the consulting firm where Daniel worked. No subject line. No message body, just the same attachments, and an additional file, a short timeline I had typed up earlier outlining the sequence of events, down to the bakery invoice and the group chat timestamp. They didn't need commentary, the facts could speak on their own. I sat back on the couch, legs folded beneath me, the wool of my leggings rough against my skin. The silence didn't feel heavy like it had at the party. It felt earned. Like something I'd carved out of chaos just to breathe. My phone buzzed. A text from Tasha. You didn't hear it from me, but Daniel just postponed dinner with his parents. Said something came up. I stared at the screen for a moment, then set the phone down, face down this time. I didn't smile, didn't gloat. Instead, I closed the laptop and leaned my head against the back cushion. I could still hear the radiator hissing softly. Outside, a plow moved slowly down the block, clearing what had already begun to melt. This wasn't justice. It wasn't revenge. It was just documentation. And sometimes that was enough. The scent of cinnamon and orange zest greeted me at the front door, warm and soft like the kind of memory that almost feels made up. Aunt Valerie's home always smelled like something baking, even when it wasn't. A fire flickered gently in the living room hearth, and filtered sunlight slipped through lace curtains like it had nowhere else to be. Someone had laid out a table with melon slices, cheese cubes, sticky buns, and pitchers of mimosas, sweating slightly from the warmth inside. I stood by the window for a long time, coat still on, letting the quiet fold around me. No one rushed over. No one said much. Just a few glances, polite enough not to be rude, detached enough not to invite conversation. Samantha stood near the fireplace, surrounded by bridesmaids in matching ivory sweaters with "Bride Tribe" embroidered across the back. She looked polished, collected. You'd never guess anything was out of place unless you knew where to look. Aunt Valerie gave me a brief nod from the kitchen, then disappeared back into a cloud of steam and soft clinks of dishes. I felt grateful she wasn't performing hospitality, just letting me stand and breathe. Eventually, someone tapped a spoon gently against a glass, and the room began to hush. Samantha stepped forward, holding her champagne flute with both hands like it was something sacred. "This week reminded me," she began, voice soft, rehearsed, "how important it is to choose love over ego. Family isn't about drama. It's about grace." A few people nodded. A couple chuckled under their breath. The kind of response you give when you know you're supposed to agree. I waited. Then I raised my hand slightly. "May I say something?" Forks paused mid-air. Aunt Valerie froze. Samantha blinked. "Of course," she said, voice even. I stepped forward, unzipped my coat, and set it across the back of a chair. My hands weren't shaking. "I drove 9 hours last week," I began, "through a snowstorm, for a cake I ordered 3 weeks in advance, your favorite, Samantha." Someone coughed lightly. "I brought it to your engagement party," I said. But when I arrived, no one greeted me. There was no seat, no name tag, no one said hello. Samantha shifted, lips tightening. "That's not fair. I'm not finished." I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone. "I also overheard something, in the hallway behind the kitchen, from you and Megan." She paled. I tapped my screen and hit play. Her voice, clear and casual, filled the room. 9 hours in a blizzard. For what? A pity cupcake. Then Megan. What if she had crashed? And then Samantha again. Honestly, the silence would have been a bonus. You could hear the air leave the room. Even the fire seemed to still. Daniel stared at her. Her smile had vanished. Mom stared down at her lap as if the folds in her napkin might rearrange themselves into an answer. I looked at my sister, steady. "You needed a villain so badly," I said. "You forgot the cost of making one." No one spoke. Not out of politeness, out of truth, the kind that doesn't need help landing. And then I felt it, a hand on my back. Light, grounding. Aunt Valerie standing beside me. She leaned in and whispered, just loud enough for me to hear, "You didn't just clear your name, sweetheart. You burned the whole script." Sunday morning arrived with wet sidewalks and the kind of gray sky that doesn't mean anything in particular, just stillness. The snow from earlier in the week had melted into puddles, leaving behind soft reflections of bare trees and flickering traffic lights. I pulled on my coat and walked the 2 blocks to the bakery on the corner. The bell above the door chimed and warmth wrapped around me like an old quilt. The woman behind the counter looked up and smiled. "Back for another special order?" "Not today," I said. "Just something simple." She nodded and opened the display case. I chose a small white cake with gold dust brushed across the top. No inscription, no occasion, just quiet elegance in a box. Back home, I set it on the kitchen counter and sliced one small piece. Then I carried the plate to the window, lit a single candle, and placed it beside me. I didn't make a wish. I just watched the flame flicker as the city moved slowly outside, the hum of a distant bus and the occasional bark of a dog breaking the calm. I remembered my 9th birthday, the one where no one came, the one where I lit my own candle and told myself it still counted. That memory used to sting. Now it just sat beside me, like a younger version of myself, content not to be forgotten. My phone buzzed. It was Samantha, a FaceTime request. I considered ignoring it, but something in me wanted to see her face. When the screen lit up, she looked tired, no makeup, hair loose around her shoulders. Her voice was quieter than I remembered. "People are asking questions," she said. I didn't answer. She hesitated. "That night wasn't about you." I looked straight at her. "Number, what's not fair is being erased." She opened her mouth to respond, but I tapped the mute button. I watched her speak, hands moving, brows furrowed, but I heard nothing. Not because the app was broken, because silence this time was mine to choose. After a few seconds, I ended the call. I opened my laptop, attached the same 3 files, photo of the untouched cake, the blurry selfie, and the group chat screenshot, and sent one final email. Subject line: the cake that got left behind. No message, no explanation. I set the computer aside, picked up my fork, and took a bite of cake. The sweetness was soft, not overwhelming, just enough. I didn't eat for celebration, not for closure, just to remind myself I was still here, still whole. I lit the rest of the candle and let it burn until the wax folded in on itself, warm and slow. Outside, the wind rattled a loose window pane, and somewhere below, someone laughed, a sound too far away to know if it was kind or cruel. I didn't need to know. Some stories don't end with applause. They end with stillness and a slice of cake that finally belongs to you. There was no applause, no reconciliation, just me, a slice of cake, and a silence that finally belonged to me. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I had to explain my presence or shrink to fit a space someone else made smaller. Sometimes the people closest to us forget that kindness isn't a performance. It's a choice. And when that choice is missing, we have every right to choose ourselves. In life, love should never come with conditions like silence, smallness, or shame. If this story reminded you of a time you had to stand alone, I'd love to hear how you found your way through. Feel free to share your thoughts. I'm listening.